Let us look at one more example. I'm going to call this component lamp component. Let's examine its UI. There is some text at the top, and below the text there are two buttons, switch on and switch off. When the switch on button is clicked, this text over here should change to on, and when the switch off button is clicked, this text should change to off. After we have implemented up to this point, we have to make sure to hide one of these buttons depending on the status of the lamp. For example, if the status of the lamp is off, then the only thing that we can do is switch it on. So we should show the button switch on. And if the status of the lamp is on, then the only thing that we can do is we can switch it off. So we should show the switch off button. But first, let us implement the functionality in the first three wireframes. That is, we should have some text at the top, and then we should have two buttons. Clicking on the switch on button should change the text over here to on, and clicking on the switch off button should change the text to off. So let's implement up to this point first. Let me add a new file to my useState_examples folder, and I'm going to call this file lamp.js. It's going to be a function component. So let's write function lamp, and it should return some JSX. So let's write a return keyword. Let me specify an empty root tag, and also I'll close it. We have some text at the top. Let's use the h2 tag for that, and let's specify off. And then below that we have two buttons, switch on and switch off. So let's write button switch on. Let's add some space between them, and let's write button switch off. Just like we did for the first example, to write state related code, let's use the three-step strategy. And the first step is, while writing JSX for UI, identify things that need to change. And if we look at the wireframes, we can see that this text is changing. Initially it is off. When we click on the switch on button, it should change to on. And when we click on the switch off button, it should change to off. So this is something that is changing. So we'll have to put that in a variable, and more specifically, we'll have to create a state variable for this. So let's do that. So this text over here is something that will change. Let's use status as the variable name, and more specifically, it has to be a state variable. So let's use useState to declare this variable. So let's write const status, comma, let's call the setter method setStatus equals useState, and I'll specify the initial value as off. To use useState, we have to import it. So let's write import useState from React. So we have identified what needs to change, and we have also created a state variable for that. And the last step is to write code to modify the state variables in event handlers. So let's do that. For the switch on button, I'm going to write on click equals, and I'm going to specify handle on as the event handler. And similarly for the switch off button, I'm going to write on click equals handle off as the event handler. So now we have to write the function definition for handle on and handle off. So let's do that. Const handle on equals, let's make it an arrow function. And in the function body of handle on, we have to write code to modify the state variables. So now we have to write code to update the state variable that was created by this statement over here. And we have discussed earlier that we should use the function that useState gives us to update the state variable. So let's use setStatus over here. So let's write setStatus, and we have to pass in the new value of status, which will be on. Similarly, let us write the code for handle off event handler. So I'm going to write const handle off equals, let's make it an arrow function, and within the function body, let us use setStatus to change the value of the state variable to off. So I'm going to write setStatus, and I'm going to pass off as the argument. So now we are done with the three steps that are listed here. Since there is only one statement of code within these function definitions, I'm going to remove these curly braces, and I'm going to bring this line of code over here. So let's do that, and let me remove the closing curly brace as well. Let me do the same for handle off. Let's remove the opening curly brace, bring up the line of code, and let's remove the closing curly brace as well. Now let us export this component, export default lamp, and let's use that within app.js. So let's open app.js. Let me comment out the code for the click counter example over here and over here. and let's write lamp over here. For some reason, VS Code did not add the import statement for us this time. So let us write import lamp from dot slash components slash useState underscore examples slash lamp. And now let us take a look at the output. So we have implemented the UI as per the wireframe over here. Before checking if this is working or not, let us open the developer tools. Let's click on inspect and let us click on components tab and let us select the lamp component over here. In the hooks section, we can see that we have a state variable and its initial value is off. That is because we passed off to useState. Whatever we pass to the useState function, like off over here, will become the initial value of the state variable, and so status will have the initial value of. I'm going to click on the switch on button now. Please keep an eye on this value over here. So I have clicked switch on now, and you can see that the value has changed to on, and that change has been reflected here as well. Now let us click switch off. I'm going to click switch off now, and I have clicked that. You can see that the value of the state variable has changed to off. So clicking the button has changed the value of the state variable to off, which is just what we wrote here for the handle of event handler. And once this state variable got updated, React took the new value and updated the HTML DOM accordingly. The final change that we have to make is that when the lamp is off, we should only show the switch on button, and when the lamp is on, we should only show the switch off button. So one of these two buttons should be hidden based on the status of the lamp. So let's add code for that. So based on the value of status, either the switch on button should be shown or the switch off button should be shown. So we need to write an expression involving both status and the buttons JSX over here. Any expression that needs to be evaluated should be specified within curly braces. So let's add that. Added a curly brace at the beginning, and let me add it at the end also. We need to show the switch on button if status is off. So let's write that over here. If status equals off, then we want the switch on button to be shown. And if the status is on, then we want the switch off button to be shown. So let's write that here. I'm going to place the curly braces at the beginning and at the end, and within the curly braces, let us compare status with on, because when the status is on, that is when we want the switch off button to be shown. And here also I have placed the double ampersand operator between the two expressions. Let us put this within brackets. So let me put the opening bracket and the closing bracket over here, and let's do the same over here also. I'm putting the opening bracket and the closing bracket over here. Let us quickly discuss what we have written over here. The double ampersand operator gives us an easy way of specifying that if the status is off, then we want this button to be rendered. Similarly over here, we have specified that if the status is on, then we want this switch off button to be rendered. The docs at developer.mozilla.org, they say that the logical AND operator is typically used with Boolean values, but if the operator is used with non-Boolean values, it will return a non-Boolean value. So the point to note here is that we can use the logical AND operator with Boolean values as well as with non-Boolean values. So we can write result equals true followed by the logical AND operator or the double ampersand operator, and we can specify a non-Boolean value over here. That means we can, for example, specify a string. Let's specify Tom Sawyer over here. Now Tom Sawyer is a non-Boolean value, and we are specifying that as one of the operands to the logical AND operator. So let's click enter and see what the result is. And as you can see, the result of this expression over here is Tom Sawyer, which is again a non-Boolean value. And that is exactly what we have done over here. This is a very common technique that React developers use to conditionally render React elements or components. We could achieve the same result using the ternary operator, for example like this. But when we use the ternary operator, it is mandatory to specify the results for both the true case as well as the false case. So here we'll have to specify the value for the false case as well, and perhaps we can specify some empty space over here like this. So here we have used the ternary operator, and here we have used the double ampersand operator. As you can see, the code involving the double ampersand operator is a little shorter than the code involving the ternary operator. So most React developers use the double ampersand operator in such cases. Let's take a look at the output now. As you can see, now only one of the buttons is visible. Since the lamp is off, we can only see the switch on button. Let's click on the switch on button now, and you can see that the lamp's status has changed to on. And we can also see that the state variable's value has changed to on. Also notice that the switch off button is now visible and the switch on button has been removed from the HTML over here. Let's click on the switch off button now, and the status has changed to off. Now we have only the switch on button and the switch off button has been removed, which is what we wanted over here. Let us go back to using the double ampersand operator over here. So I'm going to remove the ternary operator and place double ampersand operator, and I'll also remove the colon and the single quotes at the end. And now we are done with our second example.